Finally, I get to talk about the game I like. Believe it or not, this is why I started this channel in order to talk about things that I enjoy. But I guess it's because of the pandemic. There haven't been many games coming out, and there haven't been any movies that were released. So I didn't get to talk about anything that I like. But it's also the fact that when I'm complaining and whining, I get more views than when I talk about something that I do like. And when I talk about something that I do like, most people that watch the video like it, but for some reason it just doesn't get more people to try and check it out and see what it's about. Hopefully, like, this is not the case, because this is a very excellent game, and I hardly recommend it to everyone because it does show you a lot about power, and it does show you how you can get corrupt by power, and it tells exactly why there's evil people in the world. Well, actually, there's no evil people. It's more like Game of Thrones. Like, every single person has an ambition, and based on their ambition, they can be viewed by others as good or evil. Now, this game, well, if you can call it a game, is a narrative-driven RPG. And it's more like Telltale games if Telltale was actually good. Because unlike Telltale, here, every decision that you make actually matters. And there are a lot of branching paths into the storyline. So instead of treating it as a game, you should treat it more like reading a book where you kind of guide the character and you try to make it alive by the end. And trust me when I say it's a very, very difficult job to do so. I haven't completed it once, regardless of the path that I took, because the game is absolutely brutal if you play it on the way you're supposed to play it, which is no save games, just, try to go through the story. And the decisions you make aren't good or bad, but they do have repercussions. Now, the story takes place in a fictional universe, a medieval society where the gods are actually real, and the church lectures people that they have to obey by the three lots. And the lots are the lot of nobility, where you have the people that are allowed to lead and rule, the lot of the clergy, which are the people that are allowed to spread the ideology of the gods for the masses. And then you have the peasantry, the lot that is made to suffer. That's actually in the religion. Like, the purpose of a peasant is to suffer. And when a person comes of age, they are being assigned to one of the lots. For example, the noble has to kiss a sword, while the peasant gets 2 lashes to remind them about the suffering that they're going to go through life. And in exchange for that suffering, if people actually follow their lots, they will be rewarded in the afterlife. While the people who rebel against the lots, for example, let's say if a noble starts preaching the word of God, that's a sin, and they're going to be punished in the afterlife. Now, that's the religious aspect. As for the politics, the world seems to have been entirely conquered by a race of people called the Arachnians. And these are stronger, taller, and more beautiful than humans, and thus more talented at everything. And they managed to conquer the world and then install their nobility. But there used to be a great uprising by the humans, and the Arachnians, in order to make sure there aren't any more uprisings, gave humans the ability to become nobles. And the way a human can become noble is to either enroll at the Imperial Academy and graduate, which is something that's incredibly expensive and very difficult to do because it requires a lot of intellect and wits. So that path is open to only but a few. And then you also have the option of joining the military, and through conquest and incredible service, you can become a noble. But because there are no more wars, that path is very difficult to accomplish. And your character is born under a house that had his father managing to take the mantle. So he wasn't born in nobility, but took the path that only very few people managed to take and became a noble. As such, you're a peasant, but because your family is very wealthy, you have the option of studying at this university. So because of this, you have like all 3 career paths open to you. You can remain a peasant, you can become a noble, or you can try and become a member of the clergy. The thing is that based on which decision you take, the story changes dramatically, and the characters around the world are going to react to you differently. Like, if you join the church and you become an inquisitor, then people are going to react to you in one way, while if you become a noble, then people will act in another. And while it seems that, okay, well, maybe I should become a noble because that's pretty much the route to power, you're going to find that the game becomes a lot more difficult due to all the schemes and the machinations and based on the alliances you make, can influence whether your character lives or dies. Whether if you're a peasant, you will get oppressed, but at least the oppression is more direct and you don't have daggers in the dark type of thing and betrayals taking place. Now, the reason that I said that this game shows you just how people can become evil and tyrants is because imagine this. Imagine that you want to play and your purpose is to raise your family name. Like you want to have your family gain a lot of prestige. You want it to gain a couple of titles, more land and more wealth, right? So now you start working really hard. And in order to achieve that goal, you have to do really bad things, machinations. Like let's say your sister is having an affair with someone, so you send her away from your house, you disavow her. Let's say someone knows a secret about you and you blackmail someone to beat them up. You know, like you do a lot of bad things in order to reach that ladder. And when you're on top of the ladder, imagine that there's an ideology in the empire that asks for reform, that now nobles should be equals to peasants, and the church is experiencing a schism where you have different priests that are now interpreting the law differently, and they're saying it's like, you see, the gods never talked about the lots, and the lots are just what the prophet said. But what if the prophet was wrong and blah blah blah? All of a sudden, you become a hardcore conservative because you worked really hard to get to the top, and if the status quo changes, then all the prestige your family had and all the names that you have are going to go away. So now you take sides against the people. You start advocating for the continuation of the oppression. And I found that to be really interesting. Now, what's also interesting is the way the book understands power, right? Because it's not the story of good and evil. It's like, okay, the peasantry needs to come out of the oppression and everything is going to be fine. Like, no, you get like this struggle for power that's taking place. And if the slider goes too far to the left, like let's say the nobles assert their power and you help them do that, then it leads to tyranny. But if the slider goes too far to the right, where it's like the people manage to gain power, it leads to terror. So you need to make sure that, I guess like if you want to create the perfect world and you're an idealist, then you need to keep the power somewhere in the middle. But the problem of doing this is it causes a lot of economical damages because now people aren't unified, they're not working for the same goal. So the wealth of the country is going down because people go around, they attack each other on the streets. You get like groups of radicals that are destroying each other's shops and they're causing civil unrest. And all of this leads to the wealth and the affluence of the country to go down. So it's really an interesting thing because like there's no good or bad choices. It's literally about trade-offs and what are you willing to accomplish and what are you willing to happen. While there are certain events in the world that you have no control over, the ones that you do have control over can have significant consequences. And it's mostly because the game is arched in a way so that based on the paths you take, you manage to get into certain positions of power. So nobility leads you to the judge class, where you can basically make law by interpreting it. So like if the law isn't very clear, your rulings can set a precedent. If you join the church, you become a member of the Inquisition, and then you can arrest other heretics or even other priests that are not preaching the correct message, and you get to decide what the correct message is. If you're a peasant, you can incite a revolt and so on. Yeah, so I really love their understanding of power. And the way the game is played is you gain an important event in the life of your character, and then you're allowed to make a decision. Now, the decision you make is often based on your stats, because this is a role-playing game. So let's say that a couple of thugs want to have their way with your sister. If you have a high level of valor, you can try to fight them off. If you have a high level of wealth, you can try to bribe them off. If you have great speaking skills, you can try to convince them to back off because, well, like you're from a noble family and they're going to get in trouble. But if you have neither of them, or you so choose to, then you can just let it happen. And you can just not intervene. And a lot of the choices aren't black or white. So, for example, let's say that your brother, which is a noble, is caught flirting with a woman also of noble birth, but she's being betrothed to someone else from a much stronger family. Now, if you allow your brother to continue with his escapades, then he can get caught, and this will tarnish your family's name. The scandal is going to reduce the prestige of your family. But if you decide to intervene, then it can upset your brother and he's going to think less of you. So it's really no clear cut, like which is the correct and which is the wrong solution. It's really up to you, and I really love that. And it's also nice to see the repercussions of your decisions. Anyway, let me know what you think. Hopefully you guys have liked this video, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.